Hello and welcome to another bite-sized edition brought to you by the Sussex Collaborative. I'm Joe Lynch. I'm delighted to be joined today by Alison Daymond, who's the MD and owner of a business called Adastra HR that supports clients throughout Sussex with consultancy support, advice, training, mentoring and coaching in the fields of HR and employment law. Hi Ali, welcome to the Bite Size.
Hi Joe, great to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us. In the last edition, we saw a really interesting conversation between Nikki and Lucy about workforces returning to work post-lockdown. And they spent a lot of time giving us really useful information about the legal responsibilities that employers have and also the responsibilities that they don't have. But of course, there's so much more to it than the legal aspects. And I imagine you must be inundated with customers asking about what's the best way to get their teams back into work, and I hate to use the phrase, the new normal.
Absolutely, yes. No, there's a lot of going on with the new normal, isn't there?
Yeah, and what are you finding that your clients are generally asking you about?
Okay, I mean, I think as you say, it's a bit of a minefield, and it's great when Lucy gives her take on that from an employment law perspective, and that's something we've got to be so mindful of. But again, we're dealing with unpredictable human beings, and how are they all going to have their own needs and their own thoughts? And every company's different, isn't it? One size doesn't fit all. I think what I'm finding is talking to business owners is saying, well, talk to me about what you actually need, because the first thing that's happening is people saying, well, what does the new norm look like? You know, our kind of hybrid working, blended working, the new norm. And the big part of that is going to be, well, what does that mean for our business in our culture, whether we've got 5 people, 50 people, 500 people? How do we actually get people back to work in the right way that works for us as a business, but also recognises the needs of the employees, because our people are our best assets. So how do we do that?
So are there any common themes or any common questions that your clients are asking you, regardless of the size of their business?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one for us is, what can we do? What can't we do? What do we do in terms of, from an HR perspective, employment law, but also health and safety, because that always works hand in hand. And I think where we're seeing the similarities are from companies is just that possible resistance to coming back into the workplace, and that could be based on fear. It could be the worries about the fact we're still dealing with the impact of COVID, and that's not going to go away. The other part of it is, well, people have got used to working at home, and some can't wait to come back to the office. Some can't wait to come back and see their colleagues. And that's probably what I'm seeing is the strongest pull back to the office is people wanting to interact with others again. Isn't it been great? We've had Zoom and Teams, but actually that you can't beat that, proper human contact by the coffee machine, comparing notes and learning. So I think we're looking at how people are reacting to that for a mixture of reasons. And a lot of it is about that, what happens next and what does that mean for me and how do I feel about that?
And is there any particular advice you give to those people that are facing perhaps employees who are nervous or resistant to coming back? Have people decided that working from home, working in their pajamas is great and I don't want to go back to the office? How would you advise people to address that?
I think it's great questions, because that's what I'm seeing all the time. I think where you've got a real mixture of reactions from staff, the biggest thing is communicate. Talk to your people. Don't be worried about having those open conversations, because one person's feelings about it will be very different to somebody else's. One person might be, so can't wait to get back in the office, coming back in with a hop and a skip and seeing their work pals. Somebody else might be thinking, how am I going to juggle the new way that I've been working? I've been able to juggle the kids better. They're not homeschooling now, but I can actually juggle what's going on, and it saves me that commute. Others might be really quite paranoid about, well, once I start to get out on public transport again, am I going to be susceptible to the virus more? And so you're dealing with a mixture of emotions. And so the first part of that is just to understand from your employees what's going on in their heads, because part of it is, what do you need as a business owner? But the better way is to, let's find a way that's going to work for us all. And that could be a mixture of office working and home working, but actually it's getting under the bonnet of, what are their concerns, or what's the resistance? And it could just be they quite like just getting up in the morning and rocking up to the laptop with the smart shirt and tie and the tracky bottoms underneath. And some days people say, well, I can concentrate better at working at home. But I think for the business, it's actually still saying, what do they need as well? And that's a really important question. What does the business need out of this too?
So communication and consideration and some degree of flexibility is going to be really important. What are the considerations that you think employees must or should have for people who will be working remotely? How do you ensure their engagement, their safety, their performance?
I think we're going to have this hybrid working, which is going to be like, teams are going to be on rotas, aren't they? They're going to be rotating. How many people can be in the office? How many people are working at home, and how do we keep that connection going? So there's a whole piece around rebuilding the team. If we think about Tuckman's model of, forming, storming, norming and performing, we're going to see a lot of reforming teams, and those reforming teams are going to be in different structures. And exactly that, how do you get the best out of people? Because some will be great doing that hybrid way, but other people might continue to struggle with that. And on the flip side of that, from the MD's perspective, is saying, but I actually need these people in the office. So how do I make sure I get the balance of that? So do I end up structuring team meetings in a certain way with certain people on certain days? How do I make sure that when we've got team meetings or conversations going on, that the right people are on those calls, whether it's a mixture of in an office and on screen? And that comes back again to making sure that you are getting the most out of your people. And at the same time, if those people are showing resistance, let's understand what that is, because there could be a million reasons of why there's reluctance. Doesn't mean they're demotivated, doesn't mean they don't want to do the job. It just means that what's going on in somebody's head, their perception is their own reality. We talk about the tip of the iceberg. We only see the tip of the iceberg in the workplace. If we get under the surface of that, we can probably get more motivation for people, but do it in a way that they feel supported in a COVID secure environment as well, whatever that new office looks like.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been working with some clients, and we've decided that some meetings work best with everybody getting back face to face, and others work best with everybody remotely, but a mixture can feel slightly alienating to those that are not in the room, and we actually defer those meetings until such time as everybody is comfortable to be in the office. But with the likelihood, or the very real possibility, that many people will be working hybrid and spending more time at home, do organisations have much responsibility towards the health and well-being of a remote worker?
Absolutely, and again, it's a great question, because I'm working with a couple of companies and they are spending a lot of time on this, which I think is fantastic. What they're recognizing is we almost need a hybrid working program, and that takes in a combination of factors. It's what do we need now, and as a business, how many people can we have in an office? Can those individuals still carry on working at home? So this is where health and safety overlaps into HR and employee wellbeing. So are they set up at home properly? Do we need to do another workstation assessment? Do we need to make sure, are they taking breaks from the computer? Do they have the right chair? And part of that becomes the investment in the employee to say, are you really okay? So as a business, we're kind of seeing some programs putting in place in terms of almost an employee wellbeing workplace assessment on a Zoom call before we start bringing employees back in. And that's been really well received, because I think it gives, from an HR perspective, us the chance to talk to an employee and say, how are you really doing? And if we do this new ways of working, does that work for you? Does that mean you can work to your full potential? What do we need to do to make that work really well? But then also it gives the managers a chance to remind the staff of, this is what I expect from you. This is what I need. This is what the business needs. And we make sure we meet in the middle, because then if everybody's clear on those expectations, when it comes to having conversations about what does great performance look like, and you start having one-to-ones and appraisals on Zoom rather than in person, you can keep on managing the performance of that team, even if it is in a hybrid way. And as you say, you might make changes to the structure of your meetings to complement that.
Yeah. So that upfront conversation is so important, isn't it, to manage expectations both ways and to make sure everybody is comfortable with the plans in place before problems are allowed to fester.
You nip it in the bud. Yeah.
Yeah. And if there are people that are completely resistant to the new ways of working, what advice would you give to the employer?
I think, again, it's about getting under the bonnet of what's the reason for it, because people don't go from being a great employee to a bad employee for no reason. And where we say what is a good and a bad employee, if somebody appears demotivated, disengaged, disconnected, the biggest and best question a good manager can ask is why? What's going on? What can we do to understand this? Because again, people are dealing with all sorts of things outside of work. They're dealing with all sorts of challenges in the families, in dependence, in childcare. We're going to see a lot of sort of fallout from COVID in terms of mental health issues and people's ability to manage stress. And I think as we see that, that will have an effect on how people work. So the more that we can talk to the staff, you know, really encourage managers to be having those valuable conversations, you know, believe in the power of a coffee, believe in the power of that half an hour to really understand, you know, how are you doing? Because if you invest a bit of time, you're going to get so much more out of that person, and you can shape your new working plans to complement that and get the right people together at the right times.
Great. Thank you, Ali. It's obviously going to be a huge shift in everybody's lives, the very, very different ways of working for who knows how much longer. And it's obviously something that you have a great depth of understanding and knowledge of. If people have particular questions or concerns, and how are you able to help them, and how do they get in touch?
Well, absolutely. I think, you know, there's a couple of things I'd say with that, always at the end of the phone anyway, with the company details. But also one thing I'd throw in there is that spending some time looking at the team and the dynamics of it is also really powerful. So I use a lot of things like discovery insights, psychometric tools, how to really understand how people are operating. So if at any point anyone would like to talk about either HR, health and safety, or even things like insights tools, they're a great way of using this for hybrid working planning. So I would absolutely say the best way to do that is to set up a coffee or a virtual coffee on a call and chat about that on my details, which is Alison at adastrahr.co.uk, and just really reach out, or on LinkedIn, reach out and just say, this is what I'm dealing with my business. Can we have a chat about it? Because there's never anything better than have a chat and then say, well, let's understand what's going on with your business, and let's go, what's going on with your people, and let's find some solutions going forward, because there's a load of options out there that we could talk about.
Brilliant, Ali. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise with us today. Ali's details can also be found on the Sussex Collaborative on our website, and I really do recommend you get in touch for a coffee, because it's always good to chat. Ali, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Joe. It's been great talking. Take care.
Bye-bye.